We all know that the World Economic Forum has been pushing agendas such as the Great Reset, centralized bank digital currency, and digital IDs, and some of its contributors even suggested AI religions. But what if all this is leading to one thing? The mark of the beast as written in the book of Revelation. So when we dug deeper, we started to find even more clues that many of these seemingly unrelated agendas could all lead to one thing, and we'll unpack what I've discovered up to this point in just one sec. And definitely stick around. All of which began allowing me to speculate on exactly how the forces like the World Economic Forum and its contributors could play a major role in ushering the mark of the beast. So let's dive right in. Now before we begin, let's clarify what the mark of the beast actually is and what the Bible says about it. This way we're all on the same page as to what we're talking about. And I know many of you guys know your Bible verses, so this is just a reminder for some of you. Okay, so this comes straight from Revelation chapter 13, starting in verse 16, and it reads, "It also forced it," meaning the beast, "forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." So the way I interpret this is that there's something or some identification that we'll receive either on our hands or on our foreheads, and without it, we won't be able to participate in the beast's economy, the world's economy. World's economy, World Economic Forum.
It's happening.
So what are the different pieces, plans, and technologies that we know so far that could play right into the development of the mark of the beast? Well, one of the very pieces to talk about is the central bank digital currency. Now, we've had several videos on the topic and how the World Economic Forum is a major proponent of it. And for those that need a little bit of catch up on this, a central bank digital currency, or CBDC for short, is a type of cryptocurrency similar to Bitcoin or Ethereum. But the difference is that a central bank and the government has complete control over the currency. And because of such nature, many World Economic Forum contributors are pushing for this type of currency to replace the traditional fiat paper money and replace the entire financial systems to use CBDCs. Now, the people who are for this argue that CBDCs will make it faster, easier, safer for us to transfer money with less fees. But the danger in this is the concept of tokenization that governs the CBDC. What this means is that each CBDC dollar, or a digital dollar, can be programmed with specific limitations and instructions. For example, the government can all of a sudden choose to put a limit on where and how you can spend your CBDC dollar. There's even the idea of setting an expiration dates on your CBDC dollars so that people are encouraged to not to save, but rather spend the money. And no, this is not a conspiracy theory because even the Federal Reserve has an entire webpage dedicated to promoting this concept, even writing a 40-page essay why this CBDC concept is a good thing. But I want you to remember this term tokenization in just one sec because it will play a huge role in how it can usher in the mark of the beast, so stick around. The other important piece to the mark of the beast puzzle is something called a digital ID. Now, a digital ID, unlike your driver's license, will not be a physical card that you carry around, but rather it will be a form of identification where parts of your body, such as your fingerprint or your iris, will be used to identify you as the person. And this is actually kind of happening right now. A really common example is using your facial recognition system or your fingerprint to unlock your phone. And of course, that's a very simplified version of a digital ID, but it's also being used more and more for other high-stake applications. One example is the company called Clear. This company offers a service where basically you get to be put in front of the line when you're traveling through airports so that you don't have to wait in these really long TSA security lines. And how it works is that the company uses these kiosks to scan your eyes and your fingerprints to identify you. So basically, you pay the company an annual fee to be put in front of the long lines, but you do have to give them your iris or your fingerprint scans. In fact, this technology isn't just being used for travel. Clear's technology was also used at a football game where the attendees at the game was given a free beer if they scanned their fingerprint. Good luck scanning my eyes and the rest of my Asian compadres.
Good luck, everybody else!
Now, speaking of TSA, TSA is actually already using facial recognition technology in place of using our passports when entering the United States. In fact, in many of the international airports, TSA is scanning your face to identify you instead of checking your passports. And I know this for a fact because I personally had an experience coming back from countries like Mexico or Korea, Coming back, instead of handing them a passport, they were asking me to stay in front of a webcam and just look at it for a couple seconds, and boom, they have my identity. And of course, their argument is that this will make security checks so much faster and easier, but doesn't that mean that the government now has the ability to recognize your face anywhere and anytime? I mean, what could they possibly do with your biometric data? So how would exactly all of these different plans and projects and pieces play out to be the master plan of what could be the mark of the beast? And as always, the following is simply my interpretation and opinion of what's possible through my understanding of technology, the World Economic Forum's plans, and my interpretation of the Bible. One of the first things I can see happening is basically a melting pot of all these technology that I shared with you in just a few minutes ago. With CBDCs, the central banks will require all citizens like you and me to create a digital wallet account that will be used to store your personal CBDCs. But this isn't going to be enough for them due to security reasons. One of the arguments that the central banks will make is that CBDC wallets themselves aren't going to be secure, or we'll be in danger of having a fake person opening accounts or one person opening multiple CBDC accounts. So to solve this, the central banks may require all CBDC wallets to now be tokenized using the power of digital IDs. Now, I know that may have gone over some of you guys and you're wondering, what is this tokenizing thing all about? So let me explain. Think of the term tokenizing similar to the word like binding or associating, kind of like a contract. In other words, the central bank and governments may require all CBDC wallets to be connected and bound with a digital ID. This way, the biometric scans of your eye or your fingerprint are directly connected to your CBDC wallet account. And of course, the proponent of this idea may argue that this is going to be super secure, no one's going to be able to hack it, and no fraudulent transactions will ever occur since every transaction will be tied to your uniqueness, aka your digital ID. And then long gone are the days when you are an anonymous shopper. But you know what that means, right? Long gone are the days of physical plastic cards, because why need them when you could just show up to your favorite grocery stores or movie theater or an online shopping website and just scan your fingerprint reader or your phone, or just show your face to a webcam to pay for things. So instead of like right now where we swipe our cards on a reader, you just simply put your forehead or your right hand against the kiosk to pay for your food, groceries, and more. Forehead and right hand. Sounds familiar, huh?
Yup!
And I know the idea of a microchip being implanted into your hands have been floating around for a while. But I mean, if you're one of the globalist elites, why go through the hassle of getting everyone injected with a chip when you can just use their face or fingerprints, which kind of costs nothing to implement, right? And let me go a step even further. Not only do I see days when you will need to use your eyes or fingerprints to pay for things, but imagine every single thing you own is now tokenized to your digital ID. So at the checkout counter at a store, every item that you buy will be registered with your digital ID so that the governments and the banks alike know exactly what you own and when you owned it. Kind of like a personal inventory of all your belongings, but the difference is that the government and the banks will know exactly what you have and what you own. And this goes right into the idea of the Great Reset agenda. You will own nothing and you will be happy. And just what if the concept of the personal inventory attached to your digital ID is the beginning of a complete abolishment of private ownership? I mean, if I were a tyrannical government, I would first like to know what you own before I take it away from you, right? And there's even the idea of the Great Reset agenda prediction of people eating less meat in general. And because with the mark of the beast, the government and the bank will know exactly what you're buying and how much you currently have. They can easily put a limitation on your CBDC wallet from being able to spend too much money on meat. Just like ration coupons, except it's happening without like a major war. Now, all that sounds horrific and terrible, but how exactly would any of this be anti-biblical? And how would any of my prediction relate to limiting the freedom of expressing our faith? Well, with the banks and the government having so much power and control, I mean, anything can be plausible at that point. The very idea of keeping our so-called leaders accountable will become more and more difficult as these technologies are being rolled out. And from a global perspective, it's already happening in China, as I mentioned before. China is way ahead of schedule in implementing the mark of the beast through the power of their CBDC, digital ID, public surveillance, and even the social credit system. So if you're a Christian in China, the government and the banks will know exactly where you go on Sundays, what you buy, i.e. a Bible, and see if your shopping or behavioral habits reflect that of someone who isn't loyal to the Communist Party. And I know this may sound impossible, but if we're not careful, this level of tyranny and government control can come to the United States and for the rest of the world. So all in all, I do believe that the end times are upon us, and it will become more difficult for us believers of Jesus Christ to publicly profess and express our faith. But it's in the hard and challenging times that our faith is truly tested. I mean, just think back to the early church leaders and the apostles. The Roman Empire, for centuries, treated the Christians very poorly, and poorly is an understatement. But even those really hard and challenging times, the church flourished and expanded and spread like a wildfire. In a good way, of course. And already we're seeing countries like China, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, and other countries actively persecuting Christians to the extent that their lives are at stake. More specifically, China's underground churches have been exploding, with some estimates that more than 10,000 Chinese are becoming Christians every single day. And many estimates that there are more than 100 million Christians in China, which is almost 1/3 of the entire US population, to put it in perspective. But of course, the Chinese Communist Party has been trying to stop the spread of Christianity for decades. And one of the big recent moves by the CCP is to completely rewrite the Holy Bible to fit the communist narrative, even making Jesus look and appear like a sinner. And already, this version of the Bible might be making its way here to the United States. So Daniel does an excellent job unpacking the story in this video, where we'll tell you all about this newly rewritten Chinese Bible and why it's a serious threat not to just Chinese Christians, but for all of us here in the world.